You know, there is a specific kind of arrogance that comes not from what you have achieved, but from what you have inherited. I've seen thousands of defendants walk through these doors, some scared, some angry, some desperate. But Julian Sterling, the 22-year-old heir to a real estate empire worth billions, was different. He didn't walk in with fear, he walked in with a smirk. The day he stood before me, chewing gum with open-mouthed indifference and laughing at the court clerk, was the day the concept of affluenza collided head-on with the concrete wall of reality. When I finally wiped that smirk off his face and delivered a sentence that money couldn't fix, the silence in the courtroom was so heavy you could feel it in your chest. It was a moment that reminded everyone, in this room, a billionaire's son is just a citizen, same as everyone else. If you have ever felt your blood boil watching someone use their father's credit card as a shield against consequences, treating law enforcement like hired help and the safety of others like a video game, then stop what you are doing. Turn up the volume, because this isn't just a trial. It is a 40-minute masterclass in humility that you have been waiting to see your entire life. Let's take it back to the incident that started it all. It was a crisp, clear Saturday afternoon in the historic district of Providence. Families were walking on the sidewalks, tourists were taking photos, and the pace was slow, peaceful. That silence was shattered in an instant by the deafening, high-pitched scream of a V12 engine. A custom matte black Lamborghini Aventador, looking more like a stealth fighter jet than a car, tore down Main Street. The speedometer later confirmed he was doing 95 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour pedestrian zone. He wasn't just speeding, he was performing. Weaving in and out of terrified traffic, revving the engine at elderly couples crossing the street, treating double yellow lines as a suggestion rather than a rule. Officer Miller, a young rookie who had only been on the force for 6 months, was on patrol that day. When he saw the blur of black metal fly past, nearly clipping a delivery truck, he immediately engaged his lights and sirens. Most people, when they see blue lights, panic. They pull over, they worry about the ticket. Not Julian. The dash cam footage shows the Lamborghini actually speeding up at first, as if the siren was just a challenge. When he finally decided to pull over, blocking a fire hydrant in the process, he didn't roll down the window. He opened the scissor door, stepping out into traffic with his phone already held high, live streaming to his followers. He was wearing designer sunglasses worth more than the officer's monthly salary and a t-shirt that cost more than the patrol car. Before Officer Miller could even issue a command, Julian was already laughing at the camera. "Guys, look at this," he shouted, ignoring the traffic whizzing by. "The fan club is here early today. I think they want an autograph." Officer Miller approached with caution, hand near his holster, shouting, "Sir, get back in the vehicle. Get back in the vehicle now." Julian didn't flinch. He didn't even look at the officer. He just kept the camera focused on his own face, adjusting his hair in the reflection of the car window, that permanent, lazy smile plastered on his lips. "Relax, buddy," Julian finally said, turning to the officer with a look of pure boredom. "Do you have any idea who my father is? Just tell me the number so I can Venmo you and we can all go home." Officer Miller, to his credit, didn't take the bait. He kept his voice steady, though his hand never left the proximity of his belt, signaling just how volatile the situation had become. "Sir, get back in the vehicle. This is a lawful order. I am not asking you again." Julian rolled his eyes, a gesture so exaggerated it was visible even behind his dark lenses. He let out a sigh that was picked up clearly by the officer's body cam, a sound of pure, unadulterated boredom. "You guys are so dramatic," he muttered, finally sliding back into the leather bucket seat, but leaving the scissor door open just enough to keep the tension high. He didn't hand over his license politely. He tossed it out the window. It fluttered through the air and landed on the dirty asphalt by the officer's boot. The disrespect was calculated. It was a performance for the thousands of people watching his live stream, a signal that he viewed the law as beneath him, literally something to be stepped on. When Officer Miller returned with the citations, reckless driving, excessive speed, failure to obey a lawful order, Julian didn't even look at them. He grabbed the papers, crumpled them into a ball with one hand while holding his phone with the other, and threw them into the passenger footwell like trash. Then he looked directly at the officer, flashed that same blinding, perfect teeth smile, and revved the engine so loud it drowned out the officer's final instructions. "Are we done? Great, don't follow me. I drive faster than your entire department's budget allows." And with that, he peeled out, tires screeching, leaving black skid marks and a cloud of acrid smoke that engulfed the patrol car. Fast forward 2 weeks to the court date. The video of the stop had gone viral, amassing millions of views and sparking outrage across the entire state. The courtroom gallery was packed wall to wall. There were students, working parents, local business owners, people who work hard for every dollar they earn, waiting to see if the billionaire's son would play by the same rules they have to. When Julian finally made his entrance, it was a slap in the face to the dignity of the court. He arrived a full 20 minutes late, pushing open the heavy wooden doors not with humility, but with swagger. He wasn't wearing a suit. He walked in wearing a designer tracksuit that probably cost more than most people's cars. The sunglasses still perched on his nose, and he was aggressively chewing gum. He didn't look at the judge. He didn't look at the prosecutor. He scanned the gallery, spotting a few friends in the back row, and actually winked, shooting them finger guns as he strutted down the center aisle. He treated the courtroom like a VIP lounge at a nightclub, where he was the guest of honor. There was no attorney beside him. Just like the arrogant doctor before him, Julian believed he didn't need one. He believed his last name was the only defense he required. He approached the bench, leaning casually against the podium, still chewing that gum, and looked up at me with an expression that said, "Let's get this over with. I have a brunch reservation." The clerk read the charges, listing the dangerous speeds and the blatant disrespect. The room held its breath, waiting for an apology, waiting for a sign of remorse. Instead, Julian pulled his phone out of his pocket to check a text message, completely ignoring the clerk. I cleared my throat, a sound that usually brings a courtroom to immediate order, but Julian didn't even flinch. He just kept scrolling, the blue light of the screen illuminating his bored expression. I had to bang the gavel, not once but 3 times, hard enough to make the water pitcher on my bench rattle, just to get him to look up. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice low and controlled, the kind of tone that usually signals a coming storm. "In this courtroom, phones are off, sunglasses are removed, and gum is disposed of. You are standing before a court of law, not waiting for a table at a club. Lose the gum and the glasses. Now." Julian looked around the room as if checking to see if I was talking to someone else. He let out a dramatic, audible huff, slowly taking off the sunglasses to reveal eyes that were rolling toward the ceiling. He took the gum out of his mouth with his bare fingers, and in a move of breathtaking disrespect that made the bailiff take a step forward, stuck it directly onto the polished wood of the defendant's podium. "Fine," he said, wiping his fingers on his tracksuit pants. "Happy now? Can we speed this up? I have a flight to Milan at 4 o'clock, and your little schedule is really messing with my vibe." A gasp rippled through the gallery. I could see the court reporter pause, her hands hovering over the keys, unsure if she had heard correctly. I leaned forward, clasping my hands together. "Mr. Sterling, you are charged with driving 95 miles per hour in a pedestrian zone, reckless endangerment of human life, and fleeing a police officer. These are not vibes. These are criminal offenses that could have killed someone. Do you understand the gravity of why you are here?" Julian chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. He leaned his elbows on the podium, treating it like a bar counter. "Look, Judge Caprio, is it? Let's be real. I drove a fast car fast. That's what it's built for. It's a Lamborghini, not a Toyota. The road was basically empty. And as for the cop, he was just killing my content. I was streaming. Do you know how much ad revenue I generate in 10 minutes? I probably made more during that chase than you make in a year. So just tell me the number. Is it 5,000? 10? Just give me the bill so I can have my dad's office wire it over, and we can stop pretending this is a big deal. He reached into his pocket as if reaching for a checkbook, completely oblivious to the fact that the atmosphere in the room had shifted from shock to palpable anger. The prosecutor stood up, face red, ready to object to the sheer insolence, but I raised a hand to stop him. I wanted to hear this. I wanted everyone to hear exactly who Julian Sterling thought he was. So I asked, keeping my face impassive, though my patience was hanging by a thread. You believe that because you have money, the laws of public safety do not apply to you. You believe that your ability to write a check excuses you from endangering the lives of families walking on Main Street? Julian shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. It's not about excuses, Judge. It's about economics. My time is worth more than this process. My dad basically built half this city. We pay the taxes that keep these lights on. Honestly, you should be thanking me. If I wasn't out there stimulating the economy, this whole town would be a ghost town. So yeah, I think the rules are a little different for people who actually matter. No offense to the regular people back there. He waved a hand vaguely toward the gallery without turning around. That was the moment the air left the room. The mother in the front row, holding a picture of a child she lost to a speeding driver years ago, began to shake. The quiet murmurs of the crowd ceased entirely, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. Julian stood there, smirking, waiting for a fine he could laugh about later over champagne. He had no idea that he had just handed me everything I needed to destroy the pedestal he was standing on. I looked at him for a long, heavy moment, letting his words hang in the air like a toxic cloud. People who actually matter, I repeated slowly, letting the phrase echo off the high ceilings. Mr. Sterling, let me correct a massive misconception you seem to be laboring under. You seem to think that because your father built buildings, you have purchased the right to tear down the laws that protect the citizens of this city. You believe that your bank account is a license to treat public streets as your personal playground. Julian sighed, checking his watch again, clearly missing the dangerous shift in my tone. Okay, we get it. Big speech about responsibility. Can we just skip to the part where I swipe my card? I'm seriously going to miss my flight. I leaned forward, my voice dropping an octave, becoming steel wrapped in velvet. There will be no card swiping today, Mr. Sterling. You keep talking about your father's money, your father's legacy, your father's taxes. But looking at you right now, I don't see a titan of industry. I don't see a man who matters to the economy. I see a young man who has never earned a callus on his hands, standing in a tracksuit he didn't pay for, driving a car he didn't buy, hiding behind a last name he didn't build. For the first time, Julian's smirk faltered, his eyebrows knitted together in confusion, as if I were speaking a language he didn't understand. Excuse me? He scoffed, though the confidence was slightly less steady. I'm an influencer. I have a brand. You have an allowance, I cut him off sharply, and you have a dangerous delusion that human lives have a price tag. You stood there and told this court that you are more important than the regular people behind you. Well, let me introduce you to reality. The law does not care about your follower count. It does not care about your flight to Milan, and it certainly does not care about your father's net worth. In this room, justice is the only currency that matters. And right now, your account is overdrawn. I picked up the file containing the officer's report and the witness statements. I have here statements from 3 different mothers who were pushing strollers on Main Street when you flew past. They didn't see a stimulator of the economy, they saw a missile. They saw death coming for their children. You laughed at the officer. You threw your license at him. You treated a lawful stop like a joke. That is not just speeding, Mr. Sterling. That is a fundamental character flaw. It is a level of narcissism that makes you a danger to everyone around you. Julian laughed nervously, looking around the room for support, but finding only stony faces. Okay, wow, you're really taking this personal, huh? Look, if you want more money, just say it. I can double the fine, triple it, donate to the police ball, whatever. Just stop the lecture. You still don't get it, I said, shaking my head. You think this is a negotiation. You think this is a transaction. You are trying to buy your way out of a consequence because that is all you have ever done. But today, the store is closed. Your money has no power here. I turned to the bailiff. Secure the doors. No one leaves. The sudden sharp command made Julian jump. The arrogance that had been radiating off him like heat waves suddenly cooled. He looked at the bailiff, then back at me. His gum chewing stopped for the first time. Wait, what? Secure the doors? Why? I told you I have a flight. I'm just paying the fine and leaving. You are not paying a fine, I stated, my voice ringing with finality. The state has requested, and I am inclined to agree, that a monetary penalty for a man of your resources is not a punishment. It is a fee. It is a permission slip. If I fine you $5,000, you will laugh about it at dinner. If I fine you $50,000, you will make it back in a week of content. The law is designed to correct behavior, not to collect tips from the wealthy. And since money means nothing to you, we are going to deal in the one commodity you cannot buy. Julian's face went pale. The color drained from his cheeks as the realization hit him. He took a step back from the podium, his hands coming up in a defensive posture. Whoa, hold on, you can't be serious. My dad— Your father is not here, I interrupted, my eyes locking onto his. It is just you. And you are about to learn exactly what it feels like to be a regular person facing the consequences of their actions. Mr. Sterling, you have pleaded guilty by your own admission and by the overwhelming evidence of your own live stream. You have treated this proceeding as a nuisance. You have insulted the officers, the court staff, and the citizens of this state. You asked for a bill. Here is the invoice, and the cost is your freedom. I didn't break eye contact. For the charge of reckless endangerment in the first degree, combined with the aggravating factors of excessive speed in a pedestrian zone and fleeing a lawful stop, this court sentences you to 6 months in the county correctional facility, effective immediately. There will be no bail pending appeal, as you are a documented flight risk who has already attempted to flee law enforcement once. Julian's mouth fell open. The gum finally fell out, landing unnoticed on his expensive sneakers. Jail? He squeaked, his voice cracking like a teenager's. You can't put me in jail. I have a brand. I have sponsors. Do you know what this will do to my reputation? I am not finished, I continued, my voice booming over his protests. You seem to believe that your vehicle is a toy, a prop for your internet fame. You used a weapon of 2 tons to terrorize a neighborhood. Therefore, under the state statutes regarding the use of a vehicle in the commission of a felony flight, I am ordering the immediate seizure and forfeiture of the Lamborghini Aventador. No! Julian screamed, lunging forward and gripping the podium, his knuckles turning white. You can't take the Lambo. That's a $500,000 custom build. It's not even in my name. It's under the holding company. My dad will sue you. He'll buy this whole courthouse and turn it into a parking lot. Your father's lawyers can file whatever motions they wish, I said calmly, but as of this moment, that car belongs to the state, and I will personally recommend that it be auctioned off, with every single penny of the proceeds going to the victims' compensation fund for families struck by reckless drivers. The very machine you used to mock the public will be used to heal the wounds of the community you endangered. The gallery erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar of shock and vindication. People jumped to their feet. The mother in the front row burst into tears, clutching her chest. Julian looked around wildly. panic setting in for the first time in his pampered life. He looked at his phone on the table, desperate to call someone, anyone, to fix this. But the bailiff had already moved in, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. "And finally," I said, silencing the room once more, "upon your release, you will not be returning to your lifestyle of leisure immediately. You will complete 1,000 hours of community service. But not just any service. You will be assigned to the sanitation department. You will spend your days picking up trash on the very highways you treated like a racetrack. You will wear an orange vest. You will work with your hands. And you will learn what it means to serve the community instead of expecting the community to serve you. In addition, your driver's license is hereby revoked for a period of 10 years. If you are caught behind the wheel of any vehicle, motorized or otherwise, you will be returned to prison for the remainder of your maximum sentence. You wanted to go fast, Mr. Sterling. For the next decade, you will be walking." Julian was hyperventilating now. The reality was crashing down on him like an avalanche. 10 years? Trash? You can't do this. I'm Julian Sterling. Do you know how humiliating that is? I can't pick up trash. People will take pictures. It will be on TikTok. "Then let them take pictures," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Let them see that in America, no one is above the law. Let them see that character is not defined by what you drive, but by how you treat your fellow man. You wanted attention, Mr. Sterling. You wanted to be famous. Congratulations. You are about to become the most famous example of justice this state has ever seen." The bailiffs moved in with the precision of a practiced team. For Julian, who had likely never been told no in his entire life, the sight of two uniformed officers advancing on him with handcuffs unhooked from their belts was not just frightening, it was incomprehensible. It broke his brain. He scrambled backward, knocking over the podium water pitcher, sending it crashing to the floor. The water soaked into the expensive fabric of his tracksuit, turning the pristine white leg dark gray in an instant. "Don't touch me!" he shrieked, backing into the heavy wooden railing that separated the defendant's area from the gallery. "You can't arrest me. I'm Julian Sterling. My father knows the governor. My father knows the mayor. I will sue every single one of you. I will buy this building and burn it down." "Mr. Sterling, place your hands behind your back," the lead bailiff ordered, his voice calm but brooking no argument. He didn't care about the threats. He didn't care about the net worth. To him, Julian was just another prisoner in a long line of people who thought they were special, until the metal touched their skin. Julian looked at the gallery, searching for his friends, the ones he had winked at earlier, but they were gone. They had slipped out the moment the word jail was mentioned, terrified of being associated with the disaster unfolding before them. He was completely, utterly alone. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His face crumpled. The arrogance, the smirk, the vibes, it all dissolved into the terrified sobbing of a child who realizes the adults aren't playing a game anymore. Wait, please," he begged, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the sweat of panic. "I'm sorry, okay, I'm sorry. I'll apologize to the cop. I'll pick up the trash, just don't put me in a cell. I can't go to jail. I have claustrophobia. I have anxiety. I need my emotional support supplements. Please, Judge, don't do this." I watched him from the bench, my expression unmoving. It is never a joy to send a young man to jail, but sometimes rock bottom is the only foundation solid enough to build real character on. "Mr. Sterling," I said softly, "your anxiety did not stop you from doing 95 miles per hour through a crowd of families. Your claustrophobia did not stop you from trapping terrified drivers on the highway. You are not crying because you are sorry for what you did. You are crying because, for the first time in your life, you are facing a problem you cannot pay someone else to solve." The bailiff grabbed Julian's wrist. There was no gentleness in it, just firm, professional control. Julian flinched as if burned. He tried to pull away, but the second officer secured his other arm. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut, click, 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 echoed through the silent courtroom like gunshots. It was the sound of reality clamping down on fantasy. "Take him away," I ordered. Julian's legs gave out. He went limp, a dead weight in the officer's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, his snot and tears ruining the designer shirt he had worn to mock the court. "Dad! Call my dad! Somebody help me!" he wailed, his voice cracking and echoing off the walls. The officers didn't hesitate. They hoisted him up by his armpits and began the long walk, not out the front doors to freedom, but through the side door, the steel, reinforced door that leads directly to the holding cells. As he was dragged past the gallery, the audience didn't jeer. They didn't laugh. They just watched in stunned silence. It was a sobering sight. A young man who had everything, stripped of his dignity in seconds because he refused to respect the basic social contract. The mother in the front row, the one who had been crying earlier, looked him in the eye as he passed. Julian looked back, his eyes wide and terrified, and for a split second, he saw the pain he had caused reflected in her gaze. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind him with a final, resonant thud. The wailing was cut off instantly. Julian Sterling was gone. In his place was inmate number 49,201. The courtroom remained silent for a long beat, the air heavy with the aftermath of the explosion. I picked up my gavel, looking out at the stunned faces. "Let the record reflect," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet, "that justice in this courtroom is not for sale. We are in recess." I banged the gavel. The sound released the tension in the room, and the gallery erupted into conversation. Reporters were already sprinting for the doors, phones pressed to their ears. This wasn't just a verdict, it was a cultural moment. Within hours, the footage of the Billionaire brat's breakdown would leave the confines of the courthouse and begin its journey around the world. If you think the story ended when the heavy steel door slammed shut, you are mistaken. That was merely the end of the prologue. The true story, the dismantling of an ego built on sand, was just beginning. While Julian sat in a holding cell, stripped of his designer clothes and dressed in a standard-issue, ill-fitting orange jumpsuit that smelled of industrial detergent, the outside world was reacting with the force of a tidal wave. The courtroom footage didn't just go viral, it became a global phenomenon. Within 24 hours, the video of his arrogance, his gum-chewing disrespect, and his subsequent sobbing collapse had amassed over 50 million views across all platforms. But the internet, the very beast Julian had fed for years, turned on him with vicious speed. The fan club he had bragged about to the officer vanished instantly. In their place came a deluge of mockery. Memes of his crying face plastered every timeline. Hashtags like #CrybabyBillionaire and #JusticeServed trended worldwide. His follower count didn't just drop, it hemorrhaged. Hundreds of thousands of people unsubscribed every hour, watching his digital empire crumble in real time. Then came the sponsors. The luxury watch brands, the energy drink companies, the fashion labels. They all issued identical press releases, distancing themselves from Mr. Sterling's behavior. Contracts worth millions were shredded overnight. His father's real estate company had to disable their comments section and issue a public apology just to stop the bleeding of their own stock price. Julian had believed he was an asset to the economy. In reality, he had become a radioactive liability. Inside the county jail, however, there were no likes, no shares, and no filters. There was only the cold, hard reality of consequence. For the first time in 22 years, Julian Sterling was not the center of the universe. He was just another inmate at C Block. The transition was brutal. The young man who slept on imported silk sheets now lay on a thin, plastic-wrapped mattress on a steel bunk. The silence he was used to in his penthouse was replaced by the constant, echoing noise of a correctional facility, shouting, slamming gates, and the buzzing of fluorescent lights that never truly turned off. For the first 3 days, he refused to eat. He sat in the corner of his cell, knees pulled to his chest, waiting for the lawyer, waiting for the bail, waiting for his father to burst in and fix it. But nobody came. His father, furious and humiliated by the public spectacle, had decided to let the lesson stick. The expensive lawyers were told to stand down. Julian was on his own. On the fourth day, stripped of his entourage and his ego, something broke inside him. But it wasn't a breakdown of despair. It was a breakdown of illusion. He was assigned his first work detail, cleaning the communal showers. Imagine this, a young man who had never washed a dish in his life, who threw trash out of his Lamborghini window because he believed the world was his garbage can, was now on his hands and knees scrubbing grout with a toothbrush. He gagged. He cried. He cursed the judge. But the guard standing over him didn't care. "You missed a spot, Sterling," was all he said. And so Julian scrubbed. And as he scrubbed, the anger began to fade, replaced by a strange, hollow feeling. It was shame. Real, burning shame. Not because he was caught, but because he realized how small he actually was. Without the car, without the money, without the phone, who was he? Just a scared kid scrubbing a floor. Weeks turned into months. The withdrawal from his digital addiction was agonizing, but it cleared his mind. He began to listen to the stories of the men around him. Men who were in for stealing food to feed their families. Men who made mistakes because they had no other options. He realized that the regular people he had mocked in court were fighting battles he couldn't even imagine. The letters started arriving. Not fan mail, hate mail, thousands of them. But buried in the pile was one envelope that changed everything. It was from the mother of a child who had been killed by a speeding driver on the very street where Julian had been arrested. She didn't scream at him. She didn't curse him. She simply wrote, "I watched you laugh at the law. My son never got the chance to laugh again. I hope one day you understand that a car is a weapon, and luck is the only reason you aren't a murderer." Julian read that letter until the paper wore thin. He sat on his bunk staring at the concrete wall, and for the first time since the trial, he cried. Not for himself, not for his lost Lamborghini, he cried for the boy who wasn't there. When Julian finally walked out of those heavy steel gates 6 months later, the cameras were there again. But this time, there was no performance. There was no live stream, no finger guns, no designer sunglasses. He walked out wearing simple jeans and a t-shirt, looking older, tired, but for the first time completely present. He didn't run to a waiting limousine. He walked to a bus stop. His license was gone. His car was auctioned, and his father had kept his word. Julian was starting from zero. The community service wasn't just a punishment. It became his salvation. For the next year, the people of Providence saw a sight they never thought possible. The billionaire heir wearing a neon orange vest, walking the breakdown lanes of the highway with a trash picker in his hand. He didn't complain. He didn't hide when people drove by and honked or shouted insults. He just kept working. He earned every single hour of his freedom with sweat and calloused hands. But the true end of this story happened away from the public eye. One rainy Tuesday, Julian asked for a meeting, not with his lawyers, but with the mother who had written him that letter, the mother whose son was gone. They met in a small coffee shop near the courthouse. I wasn't there, but the bailiff who escorted him told me what happened. Julian didn't offer her money. He didn't offer excuses. He sat across from her, looked her in the eyes with a humility that had been beaten into him by the hard reality of justice. And he listened. He listened to stories about her son's birthday parties, his favorite toys, the life he would never get to live. And then Julian wept. He apologized, not to save his reputation, but to heal a wound he finally understood he had helped create. Today, Julian Sterling is no longer an influencer in the way he used to be. He never got another Lamborghini. He uses his social media channels now for one purpose: to speak to young, wealthy drivers about the seductive danger of power and speed. He shows them his mugshot. He shows them the trash bags. He tells them the truth that no one else in their entourage will dare to say. You are not invincible. As for me, sitting on this bench day after day, people often ask if I enjoyed taking down a billionaire's son. They ask if it felt good to wipe that smirk off his face. And my answer is always the same. The goal of justice isn't to destroy a person. It is to destroy the arrogance that blinds them. The day I sent Julian to jail, I didn't do it to hurt him. I did it to save him. I stopped him before he killed an innocent family. And I stopped him before he killed his own soul with entitlement. That day in the courtroom when the gavel fell and the tears came wasn't a tragedy. It was a rescue mission. We wiped the smile off his face so that one day he could look in the mirror and actually respect the man staring back at him. So the next time you see someone speeding through your neighborhood, acting like the world owes them the right of way, remember Julian Sterling. Remember that no amount of money can buy back a life, and no title is higher than the law. True justice is blind to your wallet, but it sees your heart perfectly. And sometimes the harshest sentence is the greatest mercy in disguise. Drive safe, be kind, and remember, in this courtroom and on these roads, we are all equal.